It's the J Bass Today Show. Get ready for a good time, a good time. It's the J Bass Today Show. Get ready to ride. Welcome to the J Bass Today Show. Thank you so much for riding with me, and I hope you enjoy the show. Season's greetings. God bless you to each of you. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode of the J Bass Today Show. Joining me is my special guest, Mr. Titus Glenn. Titus, how are you, man?
I'm doing well, and yourself?
I am wonderful. Glad to have you on. Glad to have a guest this week. Oh my gosh. But there is so much that I am excited to unpack about Titus Glenn. So let's jump right into it. As we were talking right before this, or messaging back and forth, I asked you, were you a recording artist? And I am familiar that you're a singer, you're a songwriter, and we'll get into some of that as well. But
Sure.
you said you are a conscious artist. So I've got to know what that is.
For sure. Okay, so for me, just a little bit of background to kind of explain like where the title really came from. I'm born and raised into church and
Mm-hmm.
singing since I was age of 4.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and very grew up in a very religious background, went from Baptist, Pentecostal to studying Hebrew and consider myself a Hebrew at one point. But now I'm in this space of spirituality and really discovering God in the outside the church. And the title really aligns with me being able to tap into thinking outside of religious context, and even how the way some of my songwriting has changed
Okay.
uh, to be able to write on a more conscious level and not just in the sector of church.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Especially, I'm currently getting my license to become a minister of spiritual consciousness, which basically allows me the opportunity to meet and talk about God beyond Jesus, and
Okay.
be able to understand God in a universal level versus Jesus being this savior, or or whatever that looks like for certain people. So I have my belief, but I also understand that other people have their own belief and how they get to God, and that conscious artist means I can talk to whoever based upon however they believe in
Okay, that's definitely an interesting concept. That's okay. Okay. And so, as I hear that, the first thing in this season, part of our study in school, one of the topics we've explored in composition is the power of story.
God.
And we're getting ready to write our argumentative essay. And one of the things that has stood out to me about the power of story is that we are inundated
Mm,
with stories. And even I had to teach at a symposium this past Saturday at the church. And one of the things that I shared that I've realized is that even the Bible is a collection of stories. And it is up to us in our respective areas of life and where we've come from to believe what it is we're going to believe. It's up to us to choose what we believe. And so, to hear that you have come through such uh, a background of being inundated with stories on this side, stories on that side. It's like really literally inundated. I mean, but that's daily life anyway. We receive so many stories, and so I said all that to say, how is it that you? I would say, golly, I'm trying to figure out how to word this. How did you get through all of those many stories that you've been told over the course of your life to this place? What do you believe led you here?
ooh. So
Hmm.
what I believe led me here was really looking at the scope to me of religion altogether. Like growing up Baptist, and then having that wave of speaking in tongues, and so you had this whole Pentecostal movement. So my
Mhm.
mom and aunt. Like I grew up with that speaking in tongues. So then we go from Baptist to now we in services to where they laying hands and then I get to college and now it's non-denominational. And then when I was married, now it's wait, we're doing the same thing, but then this teaching sounds more aligned when you start looking at Jesus' life and him being a Jew and what they believe. And then it's like, wait, well, let's go over here. But then you get there and
Mhm.
realize
Mhm.
that,
Mhm.
wait, this is just like another religion. This is just like another, oh, they're doing the same thing, but they just condemning other people for how they do it. And
Mm.
so it was
Okay.
a light bulb, especially sitting in one of these Torah classes when the rabbi that's teaching us, who would have been more aligned, in my opinion, about Jesus' life and him being Jewish, understanding those cultures, he's talking about that the Jews don't talk about hell.
Mm.
So in that class, I sat and I was like, wait, if Jesus being a Jew and his lifestyle was not customary to talk about hell or talk about hell in a way to there we're condemning people to go there, then why are these other religions who don't
Mm.
even have they really don't even credit Jesus' life and how he lived, right? Well, how are we now putting more emphasis on hell and then condemning people to that place if the person who we quote unquote saved us doesn't even talk about it in his culture?
Mm. That's interesting.
So then
Okay.
we move to the place of thinking and really exploring,
Mm.
on top of going through a divorce and really having to question, like, okay, I'm Titus Glenn. Like I'm not supposed to have a divorce, and
Mm.
really sitting with why did this happen to me? Like, what is really going on?
Mhm.
Tied into the religion and this is supposed to be this way. It's only supposed to be one way, but this one
Mhm.
way is not working it's not working out like I thought it should. So there has to be something
Mhm.
bigger, which led me on a self discovery, and this is how it's all unfolding.
So how long do you think that okay, um, just the okay, let me just say this.
Talk.
I am a when I start the interview, I'm listening to everything you saying. So, I want to go down the divorce trail. I want to go down this trail. But, after with the, maybe after going through the divorce, how long would you say it took you to arrive to this place of understanding?
I would say it has taken me 2 years
Okay.
to really be solid in what I am learning about myself and learning about God. Like
Okay.
coming out of a divorce, it was really that it's a grief that cannot be explained.
Mhm.
I
That's
I
good.
feel
Okay.
like
Come on now.
I,
Okay.
I was grieving. I in the last 2 years I grieved divorce, but I also grieved religion
Oh, wow.
because
Okay.
religion in itself has taught so many aspects that I believe now on my healing journey is not true.
Mm.
There's a lot of scriptures about the Bible and what it means about divorce and stuff like that. Like so many things that have been taught literal that are not necessarily literal, but because they've been taught that way, it's been harmful to people that actually live life. And then on the opposite side of that is grieving who I am as a man, like or what I thought I was as a husband, like having so many layers of me that I just had to let die because I was only living a life based upon what was told to me that I should live by.
Okay. So we've got to explore that. That is that is that's powerful because it goes back to again what I'm hearing
The story.
is the stories.
Mhm.
You got it.
Yeah,
The
story.
stories that we hear, and I keep using this word, but it is so true. We are inundated. And for you to bring to light on the end of religion. Now, see, I'm not here for one way or the other. I'm here to listen to you and just kind of hear your process. But when you say this about religion, surely any of us have noticed this and questioned it. First and foremost, how is it that there are so many different denominations, so many different quote unquote beliefs? How did we get to that? Uh, Again, with the inundation of beliefs, you have Lutheran and you have Methodist, you have, and then it just, I mean, God, and that came from Catholic, and it just spurned and continued until now. I mean, it's just like people can create a new denomination. Just because they want, just because they don't agree with one thing that a denomination is doing, and it does become confusing. And so, to bring it back out to a broad perspective as universal, I can see uh kind of how a person can get to that thought. And so that's interesting to me, just because of the inundation of stories. And so now to hear, we're raised, especially in religious settings, to see a man in a certain way.
Absolutely.
And well, of course, we the belief is that a man is supposed to be married to a woman, and that you're supposed to live in that relationship no matter what.
No matter.
And one of the things that I can just rush on to say is because of how we didn't meet, we met each other in church
Yeah.
through a conference, but because we reconnected in this particular group for Black gay men, then I know that's where you are now. And
Mhm.
so that has always been, to me, one of the greatest struggles for a Black gay man,
For
is
sure.
to come into, and just so anyone that is outside of the normal biblical scope of who you should be, uh that coming into accepting who you are is a journey. And so, the first question I guess would be, so was your marriage to a female?
It was. Yes. Yes.
Okay.
It was.
Okay. And so in that tone, so was it because you were wrestling with yourself, or was it a combination of things that led to the divorce, or what?
It was not because I was wrestling with myself at,
Okay.
at, at all. Um, Now, there was infidelity
Okay.
in the marriage,
Okay.
but are you asking why the marriage ended, or what's the question?
It's
Or,
more based on, or that, I think you've answered it, because I really wanted to know, did you, knowing what you were feeling inside, have anything to do with ending the
no,
marriage?
no, that did not, because while I was in my marriage, there was still a fight as to what was happening. But it wasn't, when I look back over my relationship with the mother of my children, I would have stayed in that situation if there were other things that were more aligned.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
think, and I often think about this because I know several same gender loving Black men that are still married.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But that's what I'm.
So
That's
it's
a,
not
that in a
so
minute.
so it's not, anything that way. There was just certain things that wasn't aligned that caused me to really evaluate why I got married in the first place.
Hmm.
Because the marriage, the way that it was put together, was not on a solid foundation. It was more
Okay.
of a question of, why am I staying here when this house was built on faulty ground?
Wow.
So it was
Okay.
hard for me to rebuild relationship or pursue something that was not built on good ground in the first place.
Oh my gosh. So okay, we getting into it, brother. I
At
get.
the same
I
time, there
do.
was purpose. There was purpose in it. I have four amazing kids out of it, and
Yeah.
that alludes to going back to knowing what this story is that we're living. Because
Mm-hmm.
some people will say that that wasn't God for me to get a divorce, but I question, what if it was God to get me to own who I am?
Because
So
there's a reason why you've arrived at this destination at this point in your journey.
right,
Yeah,
right.
that's
Like
I believe it.
everything I'm actually reading this book called Radical Forgiveness.
Mhm.
And one of the things that this author talks about is that when you are in this space of spirituality and oneness with everything that is happening, you realize that there's no need for forgiveness because it's all happening for you.
Wow. Okay.
So everything that
Even
is
the
happening,
hurt, all the issues is okay
right? Then you tie that to scripture that all things are working together for my good.
for
So
good.
you're going through, how can you condemn somebody for a divorce? How can you condemn somebody for an affair? How can you condemn somebody for killing, lying, cheating? Because in this space of oneness and consciousness and spirituality, that is all working for our highest and greatest good.
You know, man, I tell you, I'm going to try to keep moving because I have to be conscious of the fact that I have church tonight and we still have plenty of time. But I can tell that I'm going to have you back as a guest again because this is so much to unpack. Because that the thought that came to my mind is when you say all things are working, we believe that that this is everything that we are experiencing, the good and the bad, it's all collectively working together for our good. And when you think about that, and then you hear of sins, and you hear of murder, you hear of homosexuality, you hear of lying, you hear of whatever else we can start naming off that are quote unquote listed as sins, that means every one of those items on that list walks into somebody's church every Sunday.
Absolutely.
We are surrounded by the rapist, the molester, the whoever else, all of these things that are frowned upon in society. We're seeing people, we are meeting people, we're fellowshipping with people who possess these things that they have done, or that we're coming in contact with people who have, I guess, done the things that we're saying are sins. That
Mhm.
means I'm a sinner. Because baby, I can start going down the list of those things on that I've even named that I've done and that I'm quote unquote guilty of. But hearing what you said, that gives it a new light. That's what I'm saying. All that to say, to me, and I don't know if you get that as well, and I would love to hear your thoughts on it, that it brings it to a new light. That even in my mistakes,
Mhm.
uh, are the things that I've done that were questionable, that were not of integrity, or this strong character that people just want you to have. Uh, that even in that, there was a lesson to be learned. There
Absolutely.
was something that I could gain from that. There's something that this show, as I told you before, the motto is, I have been encouraged, which also can be in turn said, I have been helped. So
Mhm.
I have been encouraged to encourage. I have been helped to help. And
Mhm.
so, when you think about that in that light, what you have gone through, every part of it, let me say this, you can piggyback on it, but I'm regurgitating what I think I heard you say.
Okay, I'm
Is
listening.
that what you said? That what I have been through, what I have done, all of that, I can look at it as it is totally and absolutely working for my good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I mean, in a nutshell, yes. But
Mm,
it loops back to the stories that we've been told and how do we unpack the stories that we've been told.
mhm,
One thing that you said that I feel like a lot of people in church struggle with is the concept of sin.
mhm,
Because
mhm,
we've been told what sin is, but we have not been taught what it really is.
mm,
And sin in itself, when you look at the Hebrew word, it just really means to miss the mark.
mhm,
It
mhm,
means to make a mistake or to do something outside of character. But when you really begin to explore it, it's really talking about doing something that is not aligned with yourself. So you not fulfilling your purpose is sin.
Mm, mm,
You
mm,
going and lying for sure, that's sin, but ultimately you are sinning towards yourself because you're not operating at your highest capacity. It has
that's good.
nothing to do with fornication. It has nothing to do with being gay, straight. It has everything to do with you coming out of character, whether it's to people please, to do what you're doing to other people because you want to be liked. You're doing
Mm,
something that is not
mm,
at your highest level. And that's where you are missing the mark.
mm. Okay.
So when
Okay.
you get to really teach about what sin is,
Mhm,
we can, I believe if the church taught it this way, people will be more introspective
mhm,
because we also often talk about scripture wise, treat your neighbor as you would treat yourself. But we
mhm.
focus on how you treat your neighbor, but we never focus on how we treating ourselves. And so
So,
in that we have a lot of people who are searching for answers outside of themselves because they have not been taught how to go within.
mhm. That goes to the question to me, who are you?
Absolutely.
That speaks to that question because most of us cannot really answer, who am I? And when you brought that up, the first thing that came to my mind was to love as you love yourself. But if you don't, I've said this before. If I'm struggling to love myself, if I'm seeing myself as this sinner, and
Absolutely.
that I'm constantly missing the mark, I'm constantly falling short, and I'm struggling to get in alignment, and I don't possess the tools that I see at this point to get into alignment. I'm struggling to get into that alignment. Then how can I really love somebody else? Then in that token, I'm going to mistreat everyone that I come in contact with because I'm mistreating myself.
Absolutely. And that's what is really happening in a lot of places. And with you not treating yourself properly, now you attract the things that you really don't like. But it's really an opportunity for you to see yourself.
Mm, mm, mm,
And a lot
mm,
of people really
mm.
they don't really realize that because they've been taught to project. If not taught, they've been given the stamp of approval that is somebody else's fault, when in totality, you are responsible for everything that's happening to you.
That's good.
I mean,
That is really good.
everything. But I think this the other point you were talking about is about the sinner and all that and coming into the church. I think again because I feel like we've taught the Bible so literal that we miss so many nuggets that are right there if we would
Mm,
come out of the literal sense of what we've been told and do more digging. Prime example, when you start looking at the metaphysics of the Bible, which talks about consciousness and subconscious and just all that stuff, all that good stuff, it takes your awareness to another dimension. And I'll use this scripture. I don't want to get too deep, but this is where the revelation is for me to treat people really with kindness. Because
mhm,
at the end of the day, one of the things that I'm learning is that we really don't know what anything is for. So, in this knowledge of metaphysics and studying the biometaphysics, we can go to the Garden of Eden, right?
mhm,
And it
mhm,
talks about eating from the tree of life and death, right?
mhm.
Of the tree of was the knowledge of good and
Good
evil.
and evil.
And a
Mhm,
lot of people preach that text of, uh, Eve gave Adam the apple, and he ate of it. It was sin, and that's when he was aware of sin. But again, it was not sin when you really start digging because we don't know what the fruit was. We just been told it was apple. But if we take a look at the context, it says of the knowledge of good and evil. What is the knowledge of good and evil? When you really look at the knowledge of good and evil, it's the awareness of judgments that you place on other people. So
mm,
take into making something right or wrong, you have now eating of the tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Hmm. That's
So
interesting.
a lot of people in a lot of people wouldn't think that way, but when you start looking at the metaphysics of the Bible and the codes that are locked in the Bible on the conscious level, you realize that whatever somebody is doing is for a lesson that they need to learn for their life's journey.
Hmm. Hmm. That is good. When you said that, what I guess maybe a question is, or well, like maybe a thought, I don't know. Anyway,
Mhm.
is the fact of when they ate, the result shortly thereafter, when it says God comes walking in the coolness of the garden, the evening or whenever he came, uh, when he came,
Yeah.
Adam blamed Eve and
Uh-huh.
Eve blamed the serpent. There went the blame game. That started because
You're
you said
wrong.
the
You're wrong.
judgment.
You're absolutely,
Hmm.
absolutely. When you get into New Testament, it says, "Judge not that ye be not judged." You got to give an account for yourself, right? But that awareness that, or making somebody wrong or right for that matter, is where it comes to a point to where you are. To me, you become at war within yourself because you're trying to defend your rightness and make somebody wrong versus just owning that this is acceptable to me and that's acceptable to you, and maybe we don't align. And so maybe
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah.
it's time for us to either venture off or find a way to be in this place. But what we have been taught is I'm right, so I need to make you believe my rightness, and I need you to stand in your wrongness.
And if you don't believe my rightness, then I have judgment against you. I pronounce judgment against you.
Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Versus, okay, that's your life. I love you. I can still appreciate you for being you. But I think a lot of things, especially when it comes to church, we've been taught to save people, and the way of salvation is to make them believe what we believe.
Hmm. Wow. Wow. That's good. Man, Titus, I love this kind of conversation. I really do because first, what we unpacked in the very beginning of how did you get to this place of thinking, and then, realizing that we are on our individual journeys. One of the things that I often think about, and I often think about this because there's so much division
Mhm,
in our world.
mhm.
Uh, and the again, really at the basis of that, the division is based off the different beliefs.
Religion. Yeah.
Because we have different stories that we believe, and it leads to what you just said. Uh, uh, well, if you don't believe what I believe, then you're wrong. And so then now we have all this. We're surrounded by division, but as you also noted, there is so much that unites us. Just our humanity alone is
Abs-
enough to unite us. And it's sad that we have to go through things like COVID or emergency situations like 911 to bring us together on some kind of united front in ways that we would not otherwise be able to agree, simply because of the different mindsets that we possess, and those mindsets that we possess are direct results of the stories we've heard. And so,
Absolutely.
as I hear you say that, I just think, um, even in the group that we're in, I just some of the things that I read, some of the different posts and what have you, I think, uh, what united us into this group is one thing, but what what I'm seeing is, there are things that I don't agree with, but on the other hand, that I recognize this is what brought us together. This is how we're united. And so we might not agree on this one thing, but there is something that we can agree on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's where, to me, I've found resolution with standing true with what I believe, my concept of God, Jesus, all that. I still have my beliefs, but I'm okay with people believing whatever they believe. And even more so, having this other revelation that I heard through this group of metaphysics Bible study, is it was talking about Jacob wrestling with God,
Mhm.
and the where he wrestled with God was I think the place was like Peniel, right? But in this teaching, he was basically explaining that the pineal gland, which is in the mind, right? And so where Jacob was really, that story was really telling us that the wrestle is really in the mind.
In the mind. Now that's the truth.
In
Yes.
the mind. And so
Oh,
in that
God, it's
space,
mine.
and how we wrestle, and not just in the mind, but the concept of who God is can be a
Hmm.
wrestle within all of us. So I
Hmm.
think what the real story is, universally and consciously, is that we are fighting each other on how we are all trying to wrestle with the concept of God. Because
Hmm.
ultimately, if we are on our own journey, we are all trying to work out our own relationship with our Creator.
That's good. That is, I mean, it's serious. You know, today I had an experience in dialysis, and I've kind of had this before, multiple times before. Excuse me for even saying kinda. It's not even kinda. I've had the experience. Uh,
Okay.
okay, I've had the experience where I just wanted to tell them, take these needles out of my arm. I'm going home. I'm
Mm,
over it. Y'all are getting on my nerves, or this is getting on my nerves. I can't take it anymore. I would just crawl up and die. Let the toxins build up in my blood. Whatever happens, I'm done with this. You know,
mm,
and then some of it even can, I call it spiritual warfare, just because which is, you know, part of what I'm saying this as a thought of wrestling with God, because uh I think about the times I was off of dialysis for months, and, you know, I'm believing. I just, God, I know you're able to heal me. I know that you can restore my kidneys to full function. I believe that you gave me a good body. When I was a child, I exercised, I ran, I biked, and was the one trying to get the kids out of the house to play because I was active, you know. And so I know you blessed me with a good body, and that you can restore this body, even though I've misused it.
mm,
I admit my guilt of misusing this body, but I trust you. And so then to have to go back on it, and then to hear a doctor, you know, tell you that it's worse,
mm,
that you're at end stage, there's no hope for recovery, and I'm like, excuse me, this is not the God I serve. You know that he can do it, and so then you're wrestling with that. You're wrestling with the things that have been depressive. You're wrestling with the things that have caused you to want to commit suicide and all of this. And so I was at a place of really dealing with that earlier, because the thought was I could just really be done with this life. And I felt that way so many times before, just end it all and be done. No matter what God's purpose is, I can forfeit whoever I'm supposed to help or minister to, or meet and bless, or whatever else is with this life. It can just be over. And you know, when you talked about the concept of heaven and hell, I really would like to hear more about that, because
do you really?
yeah, I want to hear, because the uh the thought was, the picture is painted so beautifully of heaven. And
Mhm.
so the thought is, why would anybody want to remain here with all the suffering, with all the even if it's just the suffering that we have to endure mentally.
Mm,
Of course, there are so many other forms of suffering, but just what we have to uh, push through
right.
mentally to get to some place of peace, some place of whatever. And so I had to go through that this morning, and just come to the conclusion that what I'm here for
Mhm.
is got to be more important than how I'm feeling or what I'm thinking, because what I'm feeling or thinking is going to pass. That's going to pass. But my purpose, the reason why the sickness didn't take me out, That's what's important. And so I was able to get through it. But when you hear that and you think about and going back to the concept of heaven, and thinking about how some people don't want to pass from this life to the next, or what have you. What are your thoughts on that? And even that story I just told.
Are we really having this conversation?
Having it. Let's go.
Let's go. Shoot, we're here.
We
My
here. That's
you want to know my concept of heaven and hell? My concept of heaven and hell is, honestly, I'm in a space in my spiritual journey. I'm gonna take a breath because I don't know who's gonna watch this, and I don't really know to talk about this out loud. But my concept of heaven and hell is really that it's a space in your mind,
Mhm.
because hell, or through studies of what I've seen, is the lower part of you,
Mhm.
or the negative things that you don't want. And then heaven is the life that you want to live. And you can have both right here on earth.
Hmm.
But generally, normal people, most people, and I'm gonna say normal because we are people, most people live in a state of hell because they remain fearful, they remain in anxious moments, they remain depressed, they remain defeated. So you are living in hell, and you continue to create hell on earth, because the more you are depressed, the more you stay depressed, right? But to change your vibration to say, you know what, this has purpose. So in your story, you went from being in hell to being in heaven, which is a space in consciousness. So learning how to keep your vibration high, to be in that realm where God wants you to be. God, source created you to be ruler and not defeated. You can stay in heaven and live in the life that you want to live
Hmm. Okay. Okay, Titus. I'm glad I asked, because to be honest, I have had thoughts and even conversations that uh we're in that space even now.
in.
Maybe not uh physically, but mentally, we toggle back and forth, the heavenly and
Absolutely.
the hellish.
Yeah.
And to hear you say that, it just is like, okay, somebody else sees, at least on that spectrum, that we have a toggle back and forth between that here.
Back
And
before.
even with you saying, say it again.
No, I'm just saying, what to your point is just like, why would anybody want to stay here in this reality of what things are going on? But I believe we are all here for a reason,
Mhm.
right? We all have a purpose. Um, but I do believe that the concept of hell and heaven have been taught all wrong, especially when you do the research and the Catholicism, and will show you that they made it up to collect money as dowries, to prevent, if not prevent, to comfort people so they wouldn't think that their loved ones would be going to a fiery place. So they
Mhm.
set up the concept of hell in a way that you pay for your loved ones to go to heaven, per se.
Wow.
So the concept in itself, which is why the Jews, Jesus's culture, don't even preach hell. They preach living life and living life abundantly. And how do you do that? They teach the principles, they teach universal principles, but they don't focus or teach the concept of hell.
That's good. I'm thinking now on you. Part of what we have here for you is being a spiritual life coach, and
Mhm.
so uh, part of what I like to do in these broadcasts is to offer a word of encouragement. And this normally could happen multiple times throughout, but I feel like we're at a place of this encouragement because um, what what has stood out to me after doing this power of story topic is Now I need to shore up what I believe. I need to establish what it is that I am going to hear and receive. What is it that I am going to accept as truth now?
Mhm.
And that is because for so long, I'll go back to something I often talk about as well. As children, we start, we're so free. We are so free. And because we're so free, there are elders, there are those around us who have collected their own stories, who then begin to pour all of that on us. And what I call it is they start to put our fire out. Just like I said earlier that I used to be the child running, they tell me to stop running. Some
Mhm.
that was putting my little fire out because I didn't know there was anything wrong with running. And now that I think about it, there was nothing wrong with running. Run. As long as I'm not breaking things around the house or whatever, I'm just running. If I'm outside, I sure should be able to run. But I would be told to stop running. And so as children, we get inundated with these stories that God forbid we're the child that's bullied and made fun of and called out of our name, called all of these different names and things. And so then although I may at one point believe, man, I'm here, I'm able to learn in school, I'm able to then come home and teach my brother what I've learned and play school and create games and do all these things at home. And now I'm starting to get in my boat what these people are saying, and now I'm reclusing. I'm becoming an introvert. I'm gaining weight.
Mhm.
Uh, Getting to the point where I'm finding myself days in depression, days without taking a bath, days without brushing my teeth. It's getting bad. It's because those stories have inundated me, and so now that all this is happening, I'm getting the negativity. I'm
Mhm.
still going to church and they're saying what they're saying, but nobody's really equipping me with the tools. Nobody's taking that time with me to equip me with the tools that I need to overcome this. Now I'm acting out. Now I'm finding myself in jail. I'm wrecking cars. I'm running away. I'm sneaking guys through the window. My mama don't know about that, but anyway, I'm going. I'm taking her car to go to the city to meet guys. I'm doing all these things, acting out, hoping that somebody will intervene or something will happen. And nothing's happening. So I'm finding myself more and more depressed, more
Mhm.
and more. And it's like, how then, you know, as you get older and really trying to break through to this place of consciousness that you've achieved, how do you do that? What, as a spiritual life coach, what would you coach someone to say, this, these are, even if it's just what steps do you take to start overcoming those things that depress you to tell yourself a new story that will get you into that heavenly realm?
Uh, while you was talking, the scripture that came to mind was John, I want to say 6 and 10. I could be wrong. Where Jesus says, um, my sheep know my voice,
Hmm. That's
and a
good.
stranger they will basically not entertain. What I would say to the individual in this space and using the scripture is that those sheep are your thoughts, and the stranger is the thoughts from other people that you allow to be in your head.
Mm.
So, in order to get to the space of consciousness, you have to you have to evict the stranger. And how do you evict a stranger? By using the power of your own voice, because your thoughts come subject to the power that is in your own mouth. So, in that space, I would encourage people to cut off the people, places, and the things that don't serve them. It could be mom, it could be dad, it could be sometimes it could be the church people you with, and begin to really get up every morning and do a daily affirmation to speak life over yourself. And then the last thing would be to sit in silence. To sit in silence and really get to know who you are. Really go on dates by yourself. Really begin to tap into who you are, what you like, what you don't like, without the opinions of other people. And so that those are just a couple of few steps, but ultimately those that are in that space of wanting to cut away from the noise, or you have to be bold enough and courageous enough to shut the door on the people, places, and things that no longer serve you.
That's good. And I want to say, at the part of bringing up the division and all that earlier too, uh, because to me, some people will hear you say, "Cut off the things that no longer serve you," but and think that, well, I don't talk to them anymore. I don't fellowship with them anymore. I don't. Yeah, talk to them, meet up, whatever. And so what I've discovered is that again, there are some areas that we agree. Um, Last weekend, my family got together to celebrate my aunt's birthday, and I really wanted to be there. But what I've learned too is, and as much as I know my family loves me, at least there's a group of family that, I know that, and cluster of family, you know how they go. And so, and they don't quote unquote accept everything about me, but they accept me. You get what I'm saying? And so because I know some how they talk at times and some of the things that are said, uh, I don't have to let it affect me. Uh, and I'm not just not going to go and be with my family, especially since I'm thinking about these are the very same people who fed me when I could not feed myself. These are the people who changed my pamper when I couldn't change it. All those things provided housing, and shelter for me uh, and this family. And so I make a decision what I entertain when we're together. Uh,
Absolutely.
but I don't just cut them off. And so I think, and at least that's part of my growth because I understand what you're saying. Part of that it means that for
Yeah.
somebody that may literally mean you got to cut that family member off because uh, when y'all come in contact, some reason the vibrations are off, the energy is totally off. Find yourselves at odd because something just is not clicking. And but in other situations, that's not the case. You can still function together. You can still be in one another's presence
Yeah.
and agree
For
on what
sure.
you agree on.
For sure, for sure. There's levels to this, right? So you said to start off, I would start with isolation to really figure out how where I feel like oftentimes we continue to give ourselves away without checking in on what we have the ability to give away. And so when I'm speaking to releasing those things and going into isolation, it's so that you can check in to see what do you have to give,
Wow.
right? So in knowing what I have to give, now I establish a boundary, and now I can know next time I'm asked to go, do I have it to give, or will it be a stretch? But in order to actually get to the place to where I can be around you, it might take some moments to where, okay, I need to be by myself today because I don't know if I have the capacity to be in connection with you in the same. And that doesn't make them right. That doesn't make you wrong. That doesn't make you wrong, right, vice versa. It means that you're figuring out a way how to recreate the story so that you can live in a more peaceful environment inwardly and have the peace within to know how to navigate those other relationships that are no longer serving you.
I think that's interesting, and it just makes me pat myself on the back just hearing you say that, because I did not go to the family fellowship, and the only reason was because I had to serve at a symposium earlier that day, all the way in Galveston. Well, anyway. Well, you should know you in Texas, so I was in from Galveston to Lufkin probably is close to 3 hours, maybe. And so having to make that drive
Mhm.
after getting out of an event that lasted to like 2 p.m., making that drive, then having only a few hours to fellowship and having to make the drive back in order to be back at my post on Sunday morning, it would have just taken a lot out of me. And plus being sick last week and things, it's just like, okay, I need to do what is best for me. I want to be there for my auntie. We've been planning this for all this time. But now that I've gotten to this day and I'm seeing how I'm feeling, I'm thinking about the time I would have to make this drive by myself. It is not, I'm trying to think of the word you said, but anyway, it's not in the best interest
It's
of
not
me.
self-loving to yourself.
Yeah.
To
Do I have that to give? I don't feel like I have that to give and get there and be able to be the upbeat, laughing me that they expect, and joking, and because we have a time we get together, but then okay, maybe I had it to give to get there and give that. But then what about on the way home? What about when it's just me on the way home late at night, and or even if I try to take a small nap and get up early in the morning to be back? What about then? How am I going to feel on that trip? Then I have a long Sunday. And so it was a lot of different things that played a part in that. And so I just use that as an example that from what you said, that's what I heard. And that's part of being able to make an assessment within yourself of what's best for you in that situation.
Absolutely, because that's where it boils down to really being so self-aware that you know what you have to give and what you don't. And anybody that's triggered by what you're doing, that's not a you problem, that's a them problem.
Mhm.
That's something going on with them that says that they need to look at, especially when you've done it in the most loving, respectful way that you know how to
Mhm.
do it. Especially with family members, I have family, they want me to be places, and especially in my healing journey, I've had to close the door because it reminded me of the mother of my children. They invited her into certain rooms without even considering me. And so I've
Mhm.
had to not go to certain things because for me, I needed to heal, right?
Wow.
So I
Yeah.
think it plays to the point. The point of the matter is when you're first starting off, I will continue to preach this. There's going to be a space of isolation
Mhm.
because you have to figure out what you
Mhm.
what you need, and if the people that really love you will be there after the isolation.
That's exactly right. I fully agree. I
And the people
fully.
that really love you, they'll check on you while you're isolated.
Mhm. Mhm.
And once you get to a place of, oh, I can do this again. I can I can connect with you again. I'm better. But I think a lot of people are overgiving, overextended, all for the sake of, oh, they happy I came, but they're not there when I'm having to band-aid my exhaustion for what I gave to you. That you probably won't even get back to me through a phone call just to make sure I'm okay. But I digress.
But it really literally is the truth. Now, one thing I can say, they I knew they wanted me there because they then called me once my auntie finally did make it in town and to the house and had been surprised with what they decorated and all this stuff. And we stayed on the phone laughing and enjoying, and they showing me what's going on and stuff. But I'm laying in my bed the whole time. You get what I'm saying? Uh, and so I definitely respect this place of isolation. And uh, Professor Glenn, I've got to get ready to
Professor, bet.
prepare. Yeah, I've got to head back to Galveston for church, and I need to rehearse before rehearsal. And so I really appreciate you being willing to be my guest today and to have these deeper conversations pertaining to just our life experiences. Just this one conversation to me has been such an intense journey on the spectrum. We've been from one end to the next, and so I would again love to have you as my guest again so that we can continue to unpack some of this because I'm ending, but I don't feel like we're through. And so as we end, just for the sake of it, is there anything else that may be on your heart that you feel like would encourage someone who will hear this and that may need a different story or thought to take them into this next level of their journey?
I would say, in a nutshell, to be okay with the story that was told because it got you to where you are, but be okay with going into the unknown to create the story that you really want.
Going into the unknown to create the story you what?
That you really want.
That you want. Hmm. Okay. You know, yeah, we've got to do this again because I didn't even get to the song that you presented at the conference the year I met you because I'd heard the song before and just oh my God, I love it, I love it, I love it. And I meant for us to after you said it, how your songwriting has taken a turn to get to that, and so now you got to know that we have to have do part two, but. One of the last topic that we have that's due this coming Sunday is entitled The Creative Mind. And so
Mm.
part of my argumentative essay that we're going to do in later on in the semester would be of the power story, the human condition, and the creative mind. And so when you said create the story that you want, that's why you helped me to bring together the power story and the creative mind in a way that I hadn't thought about because literally we have to create the story. And I look at outside of in this season of life, not having a set choir that I can just direct and really work in the way that my heart yearns to have a choir and to direct, and we have this camaraderie and to work with a band in that way. Uh, there are still aspects of my life that I have prayed for, that I have believed for, that I have wanted, that I feel like I'm experiencing now as a direct result of what I've wanted in past times. And so for you to say that a lot of times when somebody says something on my show that gets my attention, I then think of how that fits into my own little thing. And so I'll come back with a story like that. But I really appreciate a lot of the things that you've shared today because create the story you want. Man, I'm telling you, I'm trying to end, but I want you to go into that. So what I'm gonna do,
I'm you got what I mean. How long you got? Because this is your show, and you got somewhere to be. I don't.
you know, isn't that horrible? Isn't that horrible?
But
Oh
I
my
mean,
God,
in a nutshell, we've been told so many things. We've been told we're supposed to be married to women. We've been told that we got to stay married in relationships that are not serving us. And what I've had to discover is that I can actually be in relationship with people that give me life. And I had to step into the unknownness of being single as a Black man to really tap into the unknown of what could look like for me, right? As well as with music. Like
Titus,
I love
Titus.
worship, I love praise, I love all this. I want to have all that. But what if God Source Creator is giving me something else that I can still do that, but it look a little different? And that is the unknown. That is the unknown because I feel like a lot of people stay in church because that's what they're familiar with, but it no longer serves them, but they are fearful of the unknown. But what they really want is on the other side of the
And so you have to get to that place of isolation to realize that.
unknown. To cut away every story that you've told yourself so you can understand, hey, I want that, I'll keep that, but I must throw away that because that no longer supports me.
Okay. Okay. So I'm going to do this while we on camera so that my audience will know. Will you be my guest again next week? Next week.
Next week we will record on Wednesday. Bet I can do Wednesday.
Yeah, whenever you can record, because man, I'm making my notes right now. Oh, you can't even see my index card.
Making notes for real?
Huh?
You making
Huh?
notes?
I am making my notes right now so that I know what we need to pick up next week.
I mean, but I love this type of work. This is what I love doing with clients and people and coaching and what I do in spiritual life coaching because I feel like there's aspects that church laid a foundation. It laid a foundation of the house, but it did not teach us how to put furniture in it.
And
And
how to
so
fit.
and
Okay.
how to decorate it. And we've been
Mhm.
we've been given this what do you call them homes where you go into a neighborhood and all the homes look the same?
Mm. I know what you're talking about. I know what you're talking about.
Living that way of life, not knowing that our
Cookie
house
cutter.
could be
We can use cookie cutter.
cookie cutter. That part we've been given a cookie cutter lifestyle in every culture and every religion. But when you step out into the unknown, wait, everybody house has a black door, but I want mine red. But I'm afraid that people gonna talk about the red door, so I won't do the red door. But what if I turn my door red and then the neighbor down the street discovers that they can also turn their door red? But that
Hmm.
brings us into the unknown
Hmm.
because then that's where the beauty and that's what God it says in the voidness, in that's when God said, "Let there be light." But we don't
Hmm.
understand. We have to venture into that place to where everything is void.
Okay. All right.
But like I
Oh,
said, this is what I love to
yeah.
do. It's a part of my coaching, my counseling. I'm getting my master's in counseling. It's all
Okay.
you get Titus Glenn, you get spirituality, you get life, you get realness, you get my truth, which I hope aligns with helping support you navigate to your own truth because you have to live according to your own truth.
You know what? And I want to
You really
ex
writing down stuff.
I really am writing. I want you to know I'm taking notes. I want to explore the life coaching more
Okay.
later because I wanted to ask as well, were you certified in the life coaching and all that? Because that's something I did and I want to take it even further as well. But what we can do now, and then they can hear more later, is how can people reach you?
You can reach me. TikTok is where I'm really at put my focus. But if you want to book a one-on-one call, you can go to TikTok and click on the link. But you can also go to my website, www.aftertheheartofyou.com, because we are finding ourselves. We got to find ourselves to be ourselves so that we can let other people do the same.
All right. All right. This has been amazing, brother. Thank you so much for being my guest today. Family, Titus has an event coming up on March 23rd. Titus, what you got going on?
March 23rd, I'm having my first in-person sound bath. Those that don't know what a sound bath is an opportunity to relax. So if you have depression, anxiety, worry, concern, there is science behind the healing vibrations of sound. And so we're calling it Soulful Sound Bath Experience, where we're going to come in, do some activities, do some moving around, and take a moment to meditate, tap in, and really leave refreshed and revived, really. So March 23rd, yes. March 23rd, 7:37 p.m. And you can check out the flyer and all the dates and the information is on there.
Tap in to be refreshed and revived. God bless you all.
It's the J Bass Today Show. Now I'm telling you that it's your attitude. I have an attitude of gratitude. Lord, you've been good to me.